I've been with DCA for just about 6 years.
I've been with the company for 14 years.
I've been here for 19 years.
I've been here 27 and a half years.
When we get an order, it goes out to the floor and we pull all the parts necessary for that particular unit, and then it starts over in sweating.
First we grab the base, we'll get the components, drill any holes that we have to for mounting the components later on. We'll insulate the base, wait for it to dry, mount the components. We do a lot of sub-assembly on the bench before we start sweating inside of the unit. After we do that, we'll put it inside of the unit. We'll fill it up, pressurize it, make sure there's no leaks, and that's it. Send it down the line.
And then from there, it goes to the building process.
Well, I start with verifying the parts that are pulled to make sure we're installing the right parts. Then I continue with taping off whatever needs to be taped off, and I start installing the motor base and blower, and then I align the pulleys on each. And then I mount the electrical box and continue to wire the motor and whatever other components get installed. Sometimes there's more temperature sensors or whatever they throw in there. And then I continue to install the cabinet parts, the tops, and the doors.
Process here is install the parts on the box and then just run the wires to the components.
The electrical, we always like to run and test to make sure there's not a wire missing. We check like all the controls and we go through a sequence of operation.
And then after that, it's tested.
Well, what we do is we put power to it and then we check and make sure all the components are working.
We also hook up a shroud to simulate the ductwork. We set the airflow to whatever the unit requires.
We take an amp probe, we check and make sure the motor is drawing the right amount of amps. We check the compressor, make sure that's working. Then we also run it on high head pressure and check all the controls to make sure that they all working.
We generally run the dehumidifiers for about an hour, maybe a little more, depending on the season. We run them for that long just to make sure everything's functioning properly. They tend to run a little different when they're wet versus dry, so we try to get a little bit of both. And then we also do a third and final leak check after we run the unit, just to make sure there's no freon leaks.
And the reason we do that is so when the customer gets it, we know it left here working.
Everything just works together. It makes it a seamless process, and which gives you a seamless product.
I always feel proud to make stuff in America. Putting that Made in the USA sticker, I always kind of feel something when I put that on there. Especially coming from a home builder's son, I got to ride around with him as a kid and seeing the pride in his eyes from what he built.
Everybody that works here takes pride in their work.
It's always nice to look at a unit and see nice, even, clean sweat joints. But also, a unit will work if it looks sloppy, but a customer doesn't want to look at a sloppy unit.
I think craftsmanship's important because it keeps each unit held to a certain standard. If you don't take pride in what you do, stuff slowly starts to slip away and you lose that quality. I always kind of picture it like it's my personal dehumidifier, how I would want it to look and run.